Good morning, this is Andrew. Is anyone on the phone?
And officially call the meeting to order of the Learning Technology Advisory Committee, November 3rd meeting. And if we can go ahead and start off by just going around the room. We have some new faces, but it's good to see everyone and welcome everyone back. If we can start by introducing ourselves and the institutions we represent. If we can start with Alicia, please.
My name is Alicia White. I'm the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs at McMurray University.
Ana Peña at South Texas College, Distance Learning Manager.
Good morning, Lydia Tena, Northwest Campus Dean at El Paso Community College.
George Ashmore, Director of Instructional Technology for Lone Star College Online.
I'm Josh Book. I'm Assistant Director of Distance and Extended Learning at Texas State University.
Onita Burgess, Director of the Distance Learning at the University of Texas at the Permian Basin.
Jimmy Bird, Executive Dean, Bland College.
Ken Craver, Director of Distance Education at Tyler Junior College.
Linda Murphy, Director of Teaching and Learning with Technology at Texas Women's University.
Andrew Lofters, Program Director, Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board.
Michelle Duran, Assistant Vice President for Teaching and Learning at Texas A&M University, Kingsville.
Justin Lauder, Associate Vice Provost for E-Learning and Academic Partnerships, Texas Tech University.
Vicki Freeman, Interim Dean for the School of Health Professions at UTMB in Galveston.
Francisco Garcia, Director for Center for Online Learning at UT Rio Grande Valley.
Good morning. I'm Steve Levy. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Instructional Services at Houston Community College.
Mark Garcia. I'm Dean of Strategic Initiatives at Collin College.
Good morning. I'm Sharita Love. I'm the Director of Academic Innovation at Texas A&M University, San Antonio.
And we do have some members on the phone. If you could please introduce yourselves.
Pam Morgan, Director of Continuing Professional and Distance Education at Midwestern State University.
And we may only have Pam today, is that correct? Anyone else on the line? Okay. We'd also like to welcome our special guests that are here, and we're going to begin with a couple of informational pieces that Andrew would like to share with us.
Just some housekeeping information. Number one, you have in front of you a envelope for the lunch. If you would please put your lunch money in there for Christina Kelly, who's right there, and I'm sure you've had emails from her getting ready for the meeting, and I want to thank her for all her efforts for this. If you get those envelopes and pass them this way, and I'll put them in the end for Christina. Also, in the hallway to our right, there's bathrooms, and there's also a snack room at the end of the hallway that you can also use your card to get any kind of refreshments when we have a break. Let me think, there's something else. You have also a small slip in front of you. And what these slips are for is at the end of this year, really in December, Dr. Duran and Dr. Lauder will be making a presentation to the cause committee on the activities of the LTAC for the last year. And one of the aspects of that report is how much does it cost for all the members to attend the meetings. And so what we're doing is we try to get as much as we can an accurate accounting of how much it's costing you to attend the meeting for today, and we're giving them an estimate of how much it costs for the year. So if you put down, fill out that form for me and pass that back again to me, you just give that to me, and before you leave, and I'll put that in our records. I believe that's it. No, just for this meeting, We had one for the last meeting, and I think right now we're looking at it a little bit more closely, because now we have a lot more ability to have people call in over the phone and be part of our quorum, so we want to see how that changes the cost for attending these meetings. So it does help, but if you do that, I appreciate it. That would be it.
Moving on to our first order of business, which is consideration and approval of the minutes presented. If you could please take a quick sec to review the summary notes presented for us, and at any point in time, we will accept a motion to approve the summary notes or move forward. Any comments on the minutes? One quick thing we do need to do. Dr. Loftus is on number 11. If we could just switch Ms. Elizabeth Rodriguez's name to, I do believe that you started that discussion.
That's correct. I'll put my name there.
Okay.
I'll move that we accept the minutes with due correction.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by an aye. Aye. All opposed? Oh. Pam, is that you? Do you have a comment?
Yes.
She was just saying.
She was saying aye. Okay. All opposed? Hearing none, Summary notes are approved. And now we'll move into the THECB update section by Dr. Lofters.
And good morning, everybody. I wanted to give you some updates from the coordinating board. And first, we have some updates from my colleague, Jessica Acton, who's our representative for and responsible for the state authorization reciprocity agreements for the coordinating board.
Hey, good morning. I'm just going to start off with a few just general updates regarding SARA. So we currently have 48 states that are participating, and that includes the U.S. Virgin Islands. The state of Massachusetts passed legislation, so they should be turning in their state application. I believe they said this winter, so they'll be on track. California has drafted legislation, but that's still up in the air with the state of California. For Texas, we were just renewed this last month in October for another 2 years of participation as a state. We actually have 101 institutions participating at the moment. And as you know, state fees are coming, and those are in addition to the annual NC SARA fees. And actually, Dr. Peoples asked me to get some feedback from you all on how we should structure that. We have two options. We can structure it like NC SARA does, which is based on student FTE, or we could do a flat fee across all institutions. So we're open to feedback on how you would like to see that fee structured.
Jessica, would the FTE based on total FTE of the school or online and distance FTE?
Total student FTE.
So knowing that, I would advocate more, I think, for a flat fee.
Okay.
For example, my institution, we're at almost 40,000 FTE, but distance, it's only about 2,500. So it's a little skewed if I had to pay for entire FTE.
Okay.
If I may, I've understood that SARA now is beyond just distance education. It covers extended studies, study abroad, a lot of other areas. So it's not restricted to the online. Of course, being a small institution, I would be more interested in the FTEs. So what is the overall target amount that the
You
state
need
is looking at?
$50,000 every year.
50,000?
Mm-hmm. So if we base it on FTE, we could do 500, 600, and 700. So schools with less than 2,500 students would pay $500 to the coordinating board. 2,500 to 9,999 would be 600, and then 10,000 or more student FTE would be 700, and that would get us to that $50,000 mark.
So Jessica, you said you had 101 schools participating. So if it's 50,000 and 101, that's only $495 if it's a flat fee.
Right. And that is if every institution opts to renew every year. So, we have to pay the fee regardless.
All right, would you give me the fee breakdown again?
So for institutions with fewer than 2,500 students, it would be $500. 2,500 to 9,999 students, it would be $600, and then institutions with 10,000 or more would be $700. And this is all still being worked out with leadership. These are just some options that we have.
Sorry, I'm just going to keep asking questions. So you've renewed already for the next 2 years. So we're talking, we've been approved for the next 2 years.
Correct,
Sorry,
yes.
let me clarify. So when would this fee go into place? Are we talking next academic year? Are we talking next biennium? What are we talking?
We pay the fee every year around August or September. So usually we try by the end of August 31st.
So this year's been, so we're talking probably next fiscal year is when these fees would be in place.
We would likely have the fees in place as soon as we could, so we can start gathering the money, because we'll need it by next August to pay.
That answered my question, too. So they would apply to the 2018, 2019 year?
Correct.
These fees that we would be paying?
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
I know that Dr. Lauder gave a number that was like $495, that he did the math for a flat fee. Have you all worked out, based on maybe anticipated institutions leaving or not continuing, if the fee structure is to be a flat fee, what that would be?
No, we have not.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Jessica. Usually when we spend money, we have to explain what benefit we are getting from this. And so as a state, we're going in, and it's costing the state. So how are you going to write the fine details if an institution doesn't pay into that fee for the state membership?
So membership in SARA, part of the documentation the institutions sign on the renewal application indicates that you will pay any fees to the state. So it's part of the agreement with NC SARA in the state. So it's already written into the application and renewal application.
Okay, so they're not joining. They won't be able to take advantage of the
Correct,
NC SARA
yes.
benefits.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I have to go back and sell when I
Oh,
spend
okay.
money.
So we have 101 schools right now, and we do a multi-tiered fee, and then you get 50 new schools that join that all paid. So then the coordinating board has collected $75,000 instead of $25,000. What is the extra money going to be used for? Will that be returned to schools? Will y'all bank it? What's going to happen there?
That is a really good point, and I will bring that up with leadership.
I mean, you're gonna
Potentially help with that.
So
That's a really, thank you, that's a good point. So we'll have discussions regarding that.
because I know, and it's just kind of a sidebar conversation I've had with people. I know that NC SARA has brought in way more money than they ever anticipated at this point, but yet they're still, planning to charge some fees, at least right now, as far as I know. So that's just a question, And the other question, and I think we would need clarification, depending on how all of our schools fund this, are there certain fee, or, can we turn around and use formula funding that we get from the state to pay it, or are there restrictions on what type of money we can use to pay the coordinating board?
Another good question. I will find out for you.
I would like to know how many people are already in the different tiers. I mean, my distance learning program is tiny compared to others, and I would like to know how many of the 101 institutions are paying the different tiers. How many of us are extremely small, how many of us are medium institutions, and how many are large?
I actually have a spreadsheet upstairs. I can send that to you all. And it has they break down by institution size.
Any other comments from Ms. Acton?
So following up on Justin's question then, and the spreadsheet that you just mentioned, if you could hypothetically apply the 500, 600, and 700 to that spreadsheet, we could see what you've probably done that already.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I
figured
can
you would.
send that as well.
And see what the annual income would be
Okay.
from the colleges and universities, and then we could see what kind of an overage we had too, and where we'd stand with that, with the answer to that question.
Okay, I'll definitely send
That'd
that.
be great, yeah. But I do like the 500, 600, 700. That's fine with me. So I would be in support of that as well.
So procedurally, Jessica, and it may be Andrew or somebody, is this a decision that's a staff decision? Is it an LTAC decision? Board, who will make the decision to implement and all of that?
It will be, I believe, a staff decision. The commissioner will have the final say on that. But we do appreciate any feedback, and as you're going through your day and something pops in your head and you have a suggestion or questions, just shoot me an email. It's very helpful.
Michelle, do we want to get a sense of the LTAC at this point as to what we would advise the staff of the coordinating board or the administration to do?
What is your timeline for decision?
We don't have one. So again, it's at it's in discussion with leadership. So at this point, it's just gathering all the information we can and giving them options to make that final decision. So, but I'm hoping sooner rather than later, like hopefully this winter, to get something in place.
Because this year's been paid.
Right.
This accumulation of funds for next year, so.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry, let me ask one other. So the fees will be assessed per school, correct? Now, can a system opt to pay for system-wide, or is it going to be delegated to individual institutions?
I believe this, just with NC Sarah fees, I believe the system can pay for this, all the schools, so I believe it'll work the same with the coordinating board fees.
Okay, and the reason I was asking about the timeline is I think we probably would like to have a little bit more information before we chime in on what our stance is on it. The spreadsheet that you're going to distribute to us, if you can get us the answers to the other questions about the excess fees and what those would be contributing to or where they would go, as well as what funding sources we can use to pay for this fee in particular, and any other information that you can give us. And then what we'll do is just do an electronic correspondence so that we can test the water and see what the temperature's like across the LTAC to give a more informed recommendation to you that we are hoping you would definitely take into strong consideration as you reach this. Anything else?
Well, just a question. So when do we need to have the next payment in by?
August
Next August?
18.
We have our next meeting would be on potentially February. So then we would have time to, would that be enough time? Would that be or is that you need something quicker than that?
I would prefer sooner, so we
Sooner
can
than that?
get that
Okay.
information to the commissioner.
You mentioned December, I think, was kind of what you were shooting for, was prior to the
Yeah.
end of the semester?
So then we could have an email correspondence and try to get some information to you.
So schools will have to use this budget year to pay for, if it's due in August, and then y'all will pay, but it's for next year.
Correct. So the fees would be paid whenever your institutional renewal is due, just like the NC Sarah fees.
That's not been established. I mean, we're not paying a fee currently.
Correct. So next time your institution renews, you would have the NC Sarah fee and the state of Texas fee.
System. You're going to need to develop a tier for the cost to the different systems, because this model won't work. $700 for over 10,000, sure, I'm in. You know, that's why I'm asking if you would have a different tier for
No.
systems.
The system would pay on behalf of the institutions. So if they have 5 institutions that are all 10,000 FTE, then they would pay for each individual institution in a lump sum.
Oh, I understand now.
Right.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, I have more questions. I think I have to renew like this month or next month. So that's when I will have to pay, NC Sarah fees and all of that. But, the coordinating board fee, we're guessing it may not be in place by then and a process in place by then.
Correct.
And then I won't have to renew again till, I think it's November that I have to do it.
Yeah, so
it'd
you
be
wouldn't-
November of next year.
Yeah. So you would not need to worry about it until November of next year.
So, sorry, I may be making this too complicated, but so then is coordinating board going to front the money and then they're just going to be paid back? How is that going to work? I don't want to get into a situation where, I don't have to pay till November and a couple other people don't pay till November, and then next September, y'all don't have $50,000
Right,
to join,
and-
and then we've got a problem.
Yeah,
So,
and that's, again, leadership is discussing that very scenario.
One more question. Would you, on your spreadsheet, also put, if you could, put renewal dates for
Yes,
each, for
yeah.
each of the 101 institutions?
I have that on there, so
You've
no
already
problem.
thought of that, too? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very robust spreadsheet, there you go. But as much information as you can provide, I think that would help us as well. Also, if you need some information on maybe assistance on drafting that process, I think this is probably the body that you'd like to go to when it comes to those things, to look at renewal dates and all these other great things that have come up, so. Then we should be expecting that relatively a quick turnaround from you, Jessica?
Yeah, I'll send that as soon as I get back upstairs. So.
All right, okay. That was quick. Okay, that'll work. Thank you so much. Any other questions for Jessica? We appreciate you being here today and all the work that you do, specifically with state authorization and everything else. So thank you so much.
And the next one on the list is the distance education portal. So we have had the portal open since September 1st, and we had a deadline for institutions to try to get their information in by October 15th. However, I've been accepting people into the portal as of this morning. So, so we're still in the process of giving everybody's information in. I do appreciate everyone has put it in, because we had, I think I looked at, there were, just the approvals was over 1,700 different approvals for the courses. And these are just to the courses that people were updating what they currently offer. And not only that, it seems that the field is, even though everyone's not in there yet, the field is using that public search feature already. And so they can tell who is offering what courses and programs. Thank you. Programs online or off campus, and it can tell where they are. When I gave you the demonstration last time, I neglected to show you that when you search an off-campus offering inside the portal, it will show the actual address, so you can see the locations as well. It would be wonderful in the future to be able to use that program. Say, for instance, if a university wanted to offer something off campus, there is a policy in place that says you have to notify institutions within a 50-mile radius of the distance ed delivery site. It would be wonderful if one day we could use that, so that since we already have the addresses in there, it would automatically send the notification out when you put it into the portal. But I'm not going there quite yet. We're still working on that. There have been some change. Oh, first of all, another thing. We are changing now the distance ed policy that's on our distance ed page. I'm working on that right now to accommodate the portal for approvals. For online, it's not any problem, because online is mostly a notification process. I think we will be discussing more about graduate programs and online, especially master's degree programs, to see whether or not we want to take more of a, do we want to have more of a role in ensuring quality of online graduate programs. We already do it for doctoral programs, but we had a report that came in, I want to believe it was RAND that helped us with the distance ed report, and one of the concerns they had was graduate online programs and their quality. So that's going to be a discussion. I don't have it on this agenda, but I believe it's going to come up on the next one, so we can discuss it. The other part for the portal that we made some changes, and I'm going to check them out shortly, would be for doctoral programs. I was scared that institution would try to put a doctoral program in there, because, you know, the doctoral programs have to come in front of this body before they can get an approval to be offered at a distance. And when the portal came out, I didn't believe that doctoral programs had like a queue or a way that stopped them from just putting them in automatically instead of coming in front of this body. So it sort of scared me for a second. So I made sure that now doctoral programs, whenever someone tries to put one in, it goes into a queue, like for anything off campus, and it waits for me to actually go see that it's actually it's actually been approved by us, and so therefore then I will approve it manually. So those will not go in automatically. That was one.
But a school could put it in there.
They could put it in there.
Okay.
But until I actually verify that it's actually supposed to be in there, it won't go in. Anything that I have to approve, even if it's off campus and you have it right now, if you put it in, until I actually approve it, you won't be able to see it on the public search feature, because it's not really there. Well, it's there, but it's not really approved by me. So therefore, it'll wait till then. So now for doctoral programs, they'll put it in, but until I actually approve it, it will not go into the public search feature. And if it's not been verified that I have an actual approval letter that this program is supposed to be a doctoral, if it's not there, then I will deny it and send it back to the institution.
does it actually communicate with them when they're submitting as well to let them know that it has to go through that extra approval before it shows up in the public search? I'm just wanting to make sure you don't get an influx of emails from institutions that are like, I submitted it on my end, it looks like it's there, and I can't find it in the public search.
What it does is inside the portal, it will say to the institution, if I believe something right, it'll say pending. It'll tell them that it's not approved yet. And then once I approve it, it'll go in. Not only that, the leadership advised me, and very well so, to advise me to make sure that it has a tracking feature. So I can see when someone submitted it, and I can see when it was approved. Now, online programs, since they're just require notification, when they go in right now, they're approved, so I can see exactly when you submitted that information. There was another policy that we had that requires institutions to submit a certification form for off-campus and electronically delivered courses when you try to do another proposal for distance education. You had to include that form signed by your CEO or president to say that, number one, it was approved by our board. It's a board-approved distance education program. And number two, that we're following the principles of good practice. So what I didn't want to have institutions have to submit that one form into the portal when everything else was being done through the portal. So for instance, an online program, you could just stick an online program into the portal and your approval is done, but then they would have to send in that form by itself. So what we've done is I've included language, and they were working on it through our ISS department, that would say, and it says something to the effect of, as Chief Academic Officer, President, or their designee, I certify that this distance education program proposed offering has been approved by our board and follows the good practices of electronically delivering off-campus programs and any other distance education policies by the coordinating board. And so when that language is going to be in there, the institution has to check that box before they will be able to approve a new program or submit a new program into the portal. So therefore, that would eliminate that form. So it would even streamline the process a little bit more. We still have more, like I said, more institutions that have to come in. I think, and it's, I'm not sure if this is really accurate because some of these are done by systems. So for instance, I have 29 out of 82 different institutions that are on my CTE portal, I shouldn't say community college listing, but some of these are reporting as systems instead of reporting as institutions by themselves. That was a new feature that I was talked about at the last meeting, that systems that didn't have a way of going in and looking at all the institutions, but now we've made it so a system has the ability to not only look, but they can add and amend their system institutions if needs to, if need be. They can do that as well. For universities, I have 26 out of 44, and I think they'll probably be filling up probably by the end of the year. Everything should be done. I'm trying to have all the policy done by December. I want to have all the policy finished, so therefore, from that point on, all distance education approvals will go through the portal. I believe that is it. Does anyone have any questions on the portal or concerns that you've heard about the portal?
Comments from the group? Now I'm going to jump in right before.
So, one of the issues, and I'm one of the schools that have not completed this by October the 15th, but
let the record show.
and part of the reason, there are a number of programs that we show as being approved that are not on the portal itself and not already on there. And the question has been raised, when we start putting those in there, are we going to have to provide some kind of documentation saying that y'all have previously approved these programs, or will it just go in and be automatic? So I think the concern was like a program that was approved years ago that's not on the list, and we put it in there, and then are we going to get another approval letter, or what's going to happen there? So that was the question.
So right now, the way that is working, for the ones that are online, since it's just a notification process, I'm not too worried about those. Those are fine. As long as it is an existing program in your inventory, because the portal itself will not allow you to pick anything but what you already have approval for. The ones that I will actually be looking to see if there are approval letters will be things such as off-campus, because those actually require an approval process, an approval letter. Electronic to group, because that's another form of off-campus, and doctoral programs. So in fact, I looked to see if anyone had put some in, because I was scared that one day when I was like, oh no, people are going to I have a doctoral program that's online now. When I looked, no one had submitted it. I could tell that no one had submitted any doctoral programs. It made me feel much better. Then we fixed that problem. But those are the only ones that I'll be looking to see if there's an actual approval letter that has been previously granted before I actually approve it in the portal.
And you will look for that. We don't need to submit. So, and Texas Tech has a number of off-campus and distance and online doctoral programs. So and I say you, the coordinating board will look to find those approval letters. We do not need to submit anything.
Correct. Right now, I'm looking. Now, how well that will work, we'll see if I need to adjust that policy. Because right now, I know I looked down there was like 200 approvals that I have to get to, which will take a day at least, just for me to go through each one and start looking through and seeing which ones have already had approval letters. So this is a new process. I think it's going to work out well once all the little kinks are worked out. And it seems that the field is appreciative that they can see what's out there, especially the 100% onlines. They're looking for those. And in fact, for the committee that's looking at definitions, that's going to be interesting when you come out with your findings. What do you think we should do? Your advice. I'll put that in there as well. I think that's it. Any other questions?
There's clearly a long list of what-if scenarios and if I have that or if this is this type of a program. So is there an FAQ section or guidelines on the website that explain these things to users? A lot of the current people may or may not, with the changes that happen in higher ed, may not be the people doing the portal in the future. So the more clarity that we can have up front without needing to constantly contact you in particular, or the coordinating board, would probably be beneficial. A training, online FAQs, I think, are probably the easy things, or some sort of a guidelines manual.
My initial thought was to have a webinar, but I wanted to have the policy ready that incorporated the distance ed portal first before I had the webinar out to the field. That was my initial thought. Now there is, in getting into the portal, there's a guide that's out there already that shows exactly how to put in these different programs, and it tells what to do and when things will be pending. All that's inside the guide right now, and you can access that from the distance ed page. Okay.
Any more questions or comments on the portal?
All right, one more. And the next one is OER. Is that correct? There you go. And the feasibility study. My colleague Doug Jansen is the person responsible for overseeing the progress of this OER legislation, which was SB 810 from the last session. And he's gave me some notes. He couldn't make it today, but he gave me some notes to give you some updates. SB 810 does three things. It requires institutions of higher education to add an OER designator to their list of required or recommended texts and include courses that use only OER in searchable databases of required materials. Number two, it required the coordinating board to establish and administer an OER grant program. Number three, it requires the coordinating board to conduct a study on the feasibility of creating a statewide repository of open education resources. So for the first one, course listing requirements, SB 810 amends Section 51 of the Texas Education Code and requires institutions to make the following changes. Institutions, all public, this is all institutions, public and private or independent, are required to include a designator in their course schedule list of required recommended texts that identify a text as open educational resources. So they have to put that up. Yes.
I'm sorry, so this is referring to, of course, the syllabi posting.
Correct.
And in that location.
Yeah, I
so
think
the designator being,
you have to, what I understand, this is what I was talking to Dr. Jensen. You need to have a listing of the courses that will just have will only require OER materials inside your institution. Somewhere there has to be a list of all of them, all your courses. Let me finish this one. I think probably will answer your questions. Institutions and college bookstores are required to make online textbook lists searchable for OER by including a function that allows students to search for courses that use only OER. Institutions are to make reasonable efforts to inform students of the availability of courses and sections that require or recommend only OER. OERs are defined in legislation as a teaching, learning, or research resource that is in the public domain or has been released under an intellectual property license that permits the free use, adaptation, and redistribution of the resource by any person. The term may include full course curricula, course materials, modules, textbooks, media, assessment, software, and any other tools, materials, or techniques, whether digital or otherwise, used to support access to knowledge. Please note that this requirement does not include courses that include copyrighted materials, even if they are made available to students without charge. It pertains only to courses that use only OER. That is, they have a specific intellectual license that allows free use, adaptation, or modification. Okay, I will stop there for number one. Let's go to questions on that one.
Andrew, what bill was that, 810?
It was SB 810.
Thank you.
So would a course have to be posted if it includes an OER plus a commercial cost instructional material?
What I understand is just only OER. It needs to be the search.
Course has to only offer OER and no other.
No other.
Okay,
that's
good.
right. And I'm going to, once I get done with this list, we just happen to have a member of the negotiated rulemaking committee, Dr. Lauder. I'll turn it over to him for any other comments. Number two. Oh, any more other questions? Number one. No? Okay. Number two, Open Educational Resources Grant Program. The board is required to establish and administer a grant program to encourage faculty at institutions of higher education to adopt, modify, design, or develop courses that use only OER. The legislature appropriated $200,000 over the biennium to fund this program. Negotiated rulemaking for this program took place on November 1st, and the rules adopted by the Negotiated Rulemaking Committee will be posted for public comment. The goal is to have the board consider the rules for the OER grant program at its January board meeting. Upon approval, an RFA soliciting applications will be posted around the beginning of March, with a submission deadline planned around mid-April 2018. The hope is that awards would be made by the end of May 2018. Okay, that's the part about the grant. Any questions on the grant or that I might be able to answer? If not, I can send them to Doug if you have something that you want to bring forward.
so the rules were posted on the 1st.
Oh, it didn't say when they were first. The negotiated rulemaking committee met on the 1st. So, yes, so the posting shouldn't be long. If you would know that one. Go ahead, Dr. Locke.
Yeah, we met on the 1st to go through negotiated rules. for the grant program specifically, the language of the bill was written that there are a number of things that the group discussed that we really were limited in going forward, because there's some pretty specific language in the bill that we had to follow. The rules are, it's not terribly involved and in depth, but they should be posted, I would imagine, very quickly, because it was the committee and it was a unanimous approval of it. Good. James is jumping up, and he may know when they will be posted.
So I just went through something similar with SB 968 and 969, which were the sexual assault policy rules. And so when the committee, completed their work this week, that will get routed. It has to be, of course, approved by the deputy commissioner and the commissioner. It needs to be reviewed by our legal team to make sure that, everything's kosher there. And then it goes for posting. So typically, you'll see something like, about at least a couple of weeks before it's sent to the Texas Register for posting. And then they don't, unless you get lucky and when you sent it in is right next to a posting date, they process it for a week or two, and then it actually gets posted. So honestly, I would be surprised if it was, posted sooner than 2 or 3 weeks from now. It'll probably be somewhere close to the end of this month before it would be posted. Then it's posted for 30 days, and then it's, after that 30-day period, then it'll be brought forward to the board. Actually, there's another piece in there. So during that 30-day comment period, if there's a number of comments, then staff would go back to the committee and say, hey, here are 6 actionable comments that we've received. Do you want to make any changes based on those comments? And then if that edited set of rules would then go forward for consideration by the board. Does that make sense?
So that was the Open Educational Resources Grant Program. The last was the Feasibility Study. SB 810 requires the coordinating board to conduct a study on the feasibility of a statewide repository for open educational resources. Staff has been involved in interviewing those involved in past efforts to create such repositories, and has conducted interviews and exploratory meetings to better understand what institutions, other states, and those involved in OER community are currently doing in this area. The idea is that early next year, February or March, a meeting of interested stakeholders will be held to discuss the opportunities and challenges involved in the creation and maintenance of a statewide repository. This would include a discussion of possible models of infrastructure, costs, marketing of the repository, and issues surrounding the management of the IP. More will be forthcoming as the process and study moves forward. And my colleague is Doug Jansen, and he's the one that will be the person that you will have any other questions to submit them to him. He's our one that's responsible for that legislation for the coordinating board. Any questions on that one? Eve, that's it for me for the updates.
If we could get a copy of the notes, just a good summary is always good to distribute as well on our campuses. People have questions about this. I know librarians are very active in this conversation as well, so the more information that we have to distribute, the better. So if you could potentially forward that over to us, that would be very much appreciated.
What I'll do is I will get this printed before you leave today and give you a copy of this.
And then forward the digital copy so we can distribute it electronically. Thank you. I appreciate the paper as well. But. Okay, and now we'll move on to an item that we have been working on for some time, talking about our second annual distance education survey. Is Dr. Louder.
Great. So as part of your materials that you were given, you have 2 documents. One is some updates from coordinating board, the data review committee that looked at this, and that's the one document that has some red changes, and then we've got the survey document. Let me tell you just kind of a little bit about what we've done here, and then we can kind of look through and talk about any questions. So what we did is Patrick Plush from UNT and I met a couple of times between our last board meeting and now to go through the questions that this committee suggested be updated on the distance ed survey from last year. So we went through that. We reworked quite a few of the questions. We changed some of the wording. We clarified some of the answers, and then we added in some of the questions. Unfortunately, with the number of questions we wanted to add in, this survey got to be pretty long. So then he and I kind of made a couple of executive decisions to remove a couple of questions and to combine a couple of questions and some ideas together. We also tried to rework the questions to where they fit into the blocks that the survey committee developed last time. So we did some reworking of that. Once Patrick and I finished that work, he had somebody at his office and I had somebody at my office kind of look through it for anything that we missed, and then it was sent to Andrew to the coordinating board for them to look at their and I forget what the committee is called.
Data collection.
The data collection
committee.
The data collection committee looked at it, and I think it was just earlier this week, wasn't it?
I believe it was October 23rd.
Okay, so last week.
Correct, yes.
So they looked at it last week. We got some comments back, and then there. So if we want, we can just take a little bit. I will start with the document that has the blue sentence at the top, where the committee asked for some changes, and the changes there are in red. So you can see the big change that was made on the institutional contact information, the paragraph there, survey is not intended to be an endorsement of any vendor by the coordinating board, and when an institution uses a vendor, third-party providers for distance ed, we must be sure we comply with FERPA. So that was a change that they asked to be made. And then a couple of others, just some clarifying, planning to adopt instead of adopting within the next 12 months. So looking at some changes. And you can kind of go through this where they've added some language and some clarifying statements. I don't think there's really anything major that they did that changes the overall intent of the survey. They just added a couple of things and made some clarifications.
If I can add on that, the way I'd arranged the document from the data collection committee, I had put it in the form of first would be the ones that they require, would be that first language on that first page. Then I had recommendations by the committee. Then I had questions that were raised, and last was a suggestion. So I had to organize it in that manner.
They had some good questions, especially the very end on bottom of page 6. Is there a limit on the ratio of instructor to students, which kind of changes depending on the school and the model? You know, we have some institutions that do the master teacher with a lot of graders and course helpers and then students, and we have others that use TAs and that. So it's an interesting question. My concern is if we start adding more questions, doesn't this have to go back to the committee?
Correct. So what will happen now that you've had the feedback from the committee, I've sent this to Justin and Patrick to incorporate into the, to make edits into the actual survey. Once that is finished, I have to take that back to, it's not an actual meeting, I just have to take it back to the Assistant Commissioner of Strategic Planning and Funding. And I present that to her and say, this is what we have based off of what the recommendations and suggestions you gave us, and this is what we have now.
The process would then be, once this gets approved, Patrick at UNT through their Qualtrics account is managing it. The surveys include a link that is a unique link to the respondents that would then go out, and we would we collect the data. Ideally, What we would like to do is get this sent out fairly soon so that we get it and at least some initial data before our next meeting of this group after the first of the year. So try to get it out sometime in the next couple of weeks and have the first round of data collection done at least by Thanksgiving, definitely before the end of the academic semester and the holiday break. The other document you've got is actually the survey itself, and you can kind of see what we've got. It's like I said, it's a rather long survey, 18 pages right now with the questions. This is not one that will take you 5 minutes to complete. And so it will ask, and I think ask some really good information. Any questions from the committee on the survey and what we've got right now? Yeah, it goes to, it's sent out to chief academic officers. We would also, we had talked about using the distance ed portal contacts as well, because if those are the people that are going to be putting programs in the distance ed portal, those are probably the people that will know most of this information. So we need to work on drafting the letter that will go to both the CAOs and the distance ed portal manager. We also are trying to do a little bit better job of getting the privates to submit information and find that list.
I just kind of missed the dates. You indicated that you're looking at sending this out by Thanksgiving?
So originally the thought was this would go out sometime around October 15th, but because we didn't get the survey completed and to the data review committee here until the end of October, we would like to get this out before Thanksgiving and set an initial response back by Thanksgiving, just giving people a couple of weeks, and then send a reminder after Thanksgiving and try to get the responses back before the holiday break that most schools take. So some kind of announcement in the next couple of weeks, have them do it and have it due back before the end of November, and then do another announcement, a kind of a follow-up, and then have it back before the end of December. That would give those of us on the survey committee and Patrick part of January to kind of get some high-level analysis done and then bring it back to this group in our February meeting. Is that right? February meeting? February. Yes. And if we need to, we could send out another request for participation after the first of the year to see if we don't have a whole lot of responses by then.
So Justin, how will the results of this be disseminated? And do you have any idea when that will be?
So what was done last year was this group kind of did a high-level report, the survey committee, and then the LTAC approved it, and it was placed on the LTAC or the Distance Ed website on the coordinating board's page. That was after a couple of times that the committee met. Ideally, this group will have some high-level information by February that we could look at, and then we could form a more complete report and have that posted, hopefully before the end of the academic year.
And in fact, it's on the LTAC webpage. It's on the LTAC webpage. At the bottom, you'll see the actual survey.
Yep.
Justin, last year you also had a presentation at TXDLA that worked out quite well, so it may be good to have some continual public presence when we are presenting this information. So that may be an avenue to look at, because call for programs is coming up pretty quick.
I believe Patrick did it last year, right? Mm-hmm.
Correct. He did it last time. I think
you were there as well.
I was there. I mean, I think you had.
And Patrick, even though he is no longer on this group, he has volunteered to continue to host the survey. That will, in hopes that we can do some longitudinal analysis after we do this a couple of times.
Comments or questions for Dr. Louder?
I would anticipate that my institution is likely to ask, because we're providing name and job title and the name of the institution, whether this would be publicly viewable, who's going to see it in the future?
So what we did last time is that the information that was made public did not include and did not link back to any institution or any respondent. The question was added in there in case, really, and last time this went only to CIOs, and they may not be the person that will complete it, and so that's where we ask for the name and the contact information of who's in charge of distance ed. This year, because we've got the distance ed portal contacts, this may be the last time we need to ask a question like that, because we actually are getting to where we have the appropriate contact person. But back to your original question, no names and schools, you cannot link that back in the reporting feature.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure if you've all seen the actual report that's posted right now to the LTAC webpage right now, but there's none of that information that's posted right now. But it's a very nice, very well done report with graphs and shows everything that we did last time.
I believe it just lists the institutions that participated.
Correct, correct.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to our work group. Thank you, Dr. Louder. And Patrick, please give him our thanks for all the work that he continues to do with this group. Moving on to the work group breakout sessions. Before we jump into our work groups, I'm looking at the time and it's 11. Normally our lunch gets here around 11:30, so we'll probably do, if everyone is okay, work through lunch the way we have in the past, just to keep us on time. So I know several of you have long drives home, so we'll go ahead and do that if everyone is okay with that. But I also want to draw everyone's attention to the LTAC subcommittees and work groups page that was handed out to everyone. If you could please verify that the group that your name is affiliated with is the group that you wanted to participate with.
And Pam Morgan, if you're on there on the line, I have you underneath the Distance Ed Doctoral Proposal Review Subcommittee.
Yes, love it.
Love the enthusiasm, Pam. Love the enthusiasm.
I like my team.
If you notice, there are a large amount of members under the PGP work group, and there are only a few members under the Distance Education Definitions Review work group. Just because you're affiliated with one does not mean you cannot participate in the other. For the work group discussion that we will have now, it will be okay if we have members going to the other discussion to be able to get some rich dialogue going. The other thing that I did want to ask is something that some of the committee chairs have brought up is, in this, for the sake of business continuity, and because we do have people that rotate off, we do have great relationships with some that continue the work, but is there an area with the coordinating board that we can use to share documents so that it stays within the actual LTAC group, so that even if members rotate off, the material and the content and the work that was done is available to all of those that will continue with that work? Dr. Lofters. Is there, do you have, I know some of us are using Google Docs, some of us are using Office 365, but they're all affiliated with our own institutions. So if there is any rotation or any change, the continuity of it is one of the concerns that the committee chairs brought up. So is there an area that the coordinating board has that we could potentially get some space on?
I would have to check. I've never done that here in that manner. You know, I've used Google Docs before for some other projects, but not for advisory committee materials. Usually what I would do is probably ask that the committee chairs send that to me, and I'll place that in a folder that I could keep that for the committee. As a resource, whenever you need it, it would be there, but I haven't done anything like Google Docs or anything yet recently. But I can look into that for you and see where I can place it.
Okay.
But I mean, right now, currently, if you wanted to, you could just send it to me and I'll just house all the information in a folder for LTAC.
Okay, so this is always the fun part, trying to figure out where the groups go to work on their items for lunch. So is the room?
This room, I believe someone's in there today. So what we have this room out here in the hallway, then we have the foyer. We have this open space here in order to meet, and we also have a break room at the end of the hallway that also has tables and areas that you can meet as well. I don't believe that we'll have a lot of ability to have phone. We had the ability to have a phone conversation in the other room last time, but I don't think we have that ability this time because someone's occupying that space. If you have someone in your community that might has a cell phone and wants to call a member, we can do something like that, and I can provide you numbers that I have. But that's what we have right now. We have this room, that open foyer area with the tables out there, and we also have the break room at the end of the hallway.
Okay.
I'm new and I'm not on a work group.
We welcome you to pick one.
And just, I don't think the survey, there's really nothing for the survey working group to do right now. I mean, the survey's completed, we just have to send it out. So the LTAC survey work group probably does not need to meet during this time, so we could do the PGP and the distance ed definitions group, because I know there's some overlap between the people on the survey group.
And I don't know if the distance education doctoral program review group meets during this time either. So we'd be looking at two distinct work groups, one for the PGP and one for the distance education definitions workshop.
And I think you probably need some more for the definitions.
We'll rotate around right now, especially since the other group doesn't need to meet. Okay, so we will sort that out, reconvene at
12 something.
12. So our lunch will be coming in a couple of, I think probably about half an hour. So around 12 o'clock, we'll reconvene as a group.
If there's
everyone
any
is okay
change in
with
that, I'll go around and let people know.
Okay. And Pam, you have a choice of the group that you would like to work with. I will give you a call. I think Dr. Lofters has your number.
I have her work number.
Great. Okay, so then we will be in our work groups until 12 o'clock.
Okay.
Pam, are you back on the phone?
Yes, I am.
Great. Okay, I hope everyone had a good lunch. At this time, we'd like to reconvene the meeting of the LTAC with quick updates on the work that our groups did in their breakout sessions. So I will give Josh a little bit of time to settle in, and we'll go ahead and get started with our update from the Distance Education Definitions Review Workgroup.
Yes, we're going to recommend to, we are going to potentially recommend to the coordinating board a change in the definitions of fully distance education course and hybrid blended course in the Texas Administrative Code. This is under Chapter 4, Subchapter P, Rule 4.257. It's definitions of that have to do with distance education. So essentially, the change that we're going to recommend will be changing under 9A and B, where A is fully distance education course, B is hybrid or blended course. We'll recommend that the definition of fully distance education course be changed from a course that may have mandatory face-to-face sessions totaling no more than 15% of the instructional time being face-to-face to a course that has no face-to-face sessions. So that would be fully distance education. And then we'll recommend a change to the definition of hybrid or blended course to include a course that has essentially any face-to-face meeting. It's more than 50%, up to essentially 99% via distance education. So we're also going to we're in the process of drafting a question to be added to the survey that Dr. Lauder is working on to survey institutions about whether they would have objections to a change in the definitions in the administrative code. So the survey question we would add the question to the survey. I should have started with that. We would add the question to the survey and survey the institutions, and then subsequently make the recommendation to the coordinating board.
I just want to get clarification, just to make sure I'm on the same page. So you're saying you want to eliminate 100%? Is that what you're saying? So is that what I'm hearing is that fully would take the place of 100%?
No, fully would only be 100%.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Right now, we have 100% as an actual category. So we just get rid of 100% and we just say fully.
Not in the TAC. In TAC, you don't have fully online 100%. You have 85 to 100. They're talking about the TAC in particular.
Just in the TAC.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, Andrew, what the group thought is to do some differentiation in administrative code, because right now it's the 85% and above. And I think there was the concern with members of the committee, and somebody please jump in. It was a school could say they've got an online program and still require face-to-face and you know, truth in advertising and that, it's got a problem. But as you're saying, internally, coordinating board has the 100% online, but that is an internal rule. It's not in TAC.
Correct. And the reason I was asking that, because I'm just thinking about the portal and so forth, I would have to change inside there. So it would just, if I'm hearing you correctly, I would have as categories hybrid, blended, and fully, and that's it, correct?
The nice thing about it is it removes the requirement, I guess, for schools to have to make the same distinction that you made to show that a course that is really is 100% online and you don't have to come to class. But when calling it fully online doesn't mean that. So now we make the definition accurate.
And the background, the reasoning for the recommendation to the change in definition is based on the experience that I'm sure we've all had at our particular institutions. If we're defining courses the same way that the Texas Administrative Code is, if we're defining a fully online course at our own institution as 85% of the courses online, that still allows for up to 15% face-to-face, and then, but students who register or want to register in a fully online course, they expect that that course can be completed online, or at least if it's not an online distance education course, that the course can be completed at a distance from the institution. When, according to the definition in the administrative code, actually the course can require up to 15% face-to-face meetings on campus. So that's a question that comes up from students all the time. So this would make something that institutions are doing on their own through explanatory language. This would just put it into the administrative code, and it would make fully online or fully distance education actually mean fully distance education. So that's the reasoning behind the recommendation for the change in definition.
So, Andrew, in the portal, you already have the 100% online.
So,
right.
Right. So I was just, the way I was thinking, depending on when this would change, is what I would do is I'd probably just lump in what I have right now fully and hybrid blended into hybrid blended. They'd all be one. And then fully I would just replace that for the 100%. I mean, it's doable, yes. Now, I would say that you'd probably have to have the same justification. You'd have to present that to the leadership and then to the board, you know, once you have everything drafted.
And I think as we were having a very similar discussion in the PGP group about distribution of information for buy-in and to make sure that the community itself is aware of what's going on in agreement with what's going on. I mean, we are looking at changing Texas Administrative Code, which is not an easy thing to come by. We want to make sure that we vet whatever we are doing through significant channels so that we can get as much rich feedback as possible before it gets to the LTAC for recommendation. So as long as we can also document that for historical purposes and to document the methodology behind all that, that would be good. In the sake of transparency for everyone that is not represented at the table to be able to have participated in this process change. So just a recommendation for the committee itself.
Right, and that's why we want to begin with adding the question to the survey, so that institutions that aren't represented here have a chance to have their voices heard before it gets to a recommendation that we would make to THCCB.
So this is not one you're planning on trying to do very quickly. You want to wait until after, so it'd be at least.
Well, we can potentially, we've began drafting the survey question, so we can get the question on the survey before the survey goes out.
I could still present that new question to the survey chair,
Andrew, I'm going to email the folks on the working group the draft question either this afternoon or tomorrow. Would you like me to copy you on that?
Please, please, please.
And would that, sorry, Josh, would that be on the wording of the question, or?
Yes. I could copy the whole committee, all of LTAC, actually.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask you if you would do
Sure.
that, please. Thanks. Because the question may beg a lot of other questions or issues from the colleges when they start to answer that, because I think you're probably going to get a lot of feedback on this, just from the way different colleges conduct their online programs.
And do we want to put it in the survey where it's among so many other different questions? The intent of the survey itself is a little bit more to give a state of distance learning practices that are currently in place. I'm not sure, and I don't know my opinion either way right now, but I'm not sure if that's the avenue that we put something of this magnitude in at this time. So open for feedback on that.
I have the same. I'm sorry, Justin. Go ahead.
No, I made the suggestion of adding it to the survey just so that we could get a broad representation of people. But I understand the concern too. Please, Steve.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is true or not. You folks who have a lot more to do with government and voting and trends and that sort of thing always say if you want to have a better chance of get something passed, you mix it in with a whole lot of other issues on the same day. So I don't know whether that's true or not, but this is, as Michelle said, a really important question to a lot of the institutions that offer small or large online programs. And so I think it warrants perhaps a separate, and this is just me speculating at this point, but it warrants a separate question, kind of a standalone thing so that people notice it as opposed to being combined in the context of 20 or 30 or 40 other questions in that survey. That's just my feeling about it.
I think that is for a general input is good, but there's one more step I would recommend, and that would be looking at what is going on across the country on possibly some of the other areas, because they may already have some specifics on defining. Where you're going to have a problem, I think, are those that are marketing themselves as online programs, and then they have face-to-face requirements. And then that would hit a problem. But seeing, again, what other people are doing as part of your process would be...
And I'm also kind of blue skying a little bit here. This may also affect some third-party accreditations of programs, too, as to how they offer courses. Requirements for offering courses in an online way. So I'm not sure if it would or would not, but it might have some effect on that, too. So, yes, the institutional input would be critical, I think.
Any other comments?
So, Andrew, then procedurally, if this was not to be added into the survey but done separately, how would that work in order to get a greater and maybe allow people to take a little bit more time in answering?
Right. The way that we would probably, and this would be, so basically you're saying you wanted to have like a one question survey to go out to different institutions to find out what is your position on this, correct?
Well, it may not even be,
it's not really a survey, but what's your position, or what do you do for these
right.
definitions?
This question or small group of questions is intended to, get your feedback specifically on the issue that Josh is presenting,
right.
On the issue of changing the definition of online and hybrid courses in the state of Texas. So it may not even, it may be more than one question, too.
Our current mode of delivering information or contacting institutions is through our system we call Gov Delivery. So what it will do, it will allow me to send a message to, for instance, presidents and chancellors of universities. You pick categories. Presidents of community colleges, but I don't know if it will go straight to like the person who is the distance ed person, but it would go to upper level administration and they could give it to that person. We could get it back though, but we have a way of delivering messages to upper level administration and all the different institutions, public institutions. The privates, I think what we did last time was that we went to iCut and we got a list from them and added it to the Gov Delivery message. I think that's what we did last time when we sent out the survey. And that's how we got it to the privates, I believe. At least how we did. So yes, we could. You just have to tell me, provide me the question, and I'll present it to the leadership. That's all.
I mean, to do something like that, would it have to be approved by the commissioner, or?
The last time we did the survey, it was not approved by the commissioner. So it was some type of question. We just went straight, once our division leadership approved it, we were able to send it out.
And just to follow up on sort of a procedural question on that, do you only want to send so many questions like that when you're asking for feedback on things a year, or do you have a process that?
No, I mean, what we would have to do is make sure that the leadership inside the AQW would be approving what we're sending out. We'd have to present all this to them. They would probably give feedback on what they think would need to be in the questions or how we're presenting it, what format it's in. Send it back. I would probably present it to you all. Once that's all met approval, then we can probably send it out through Gov Delivery.
So I might recommend that I can email a draft of the question to committee members and to Dr. Lofters this afternoon or tomorrow, and maybe this is going to be a longer-term process, clearly, and we want to think through what we're doing, and we do want to invite investment instead of rushing into something that into something as significant as changing definitions in the administrative code. So it's always better to do something deliberately and process-oriented than rushing it. So I would recommend to the committee that I send draft definitions this afternoon or tomorrow to all of us, and that at the next, we revisit this at the next meeting, and if there are recommendations on the survey question itself, and maybe at the next meeting, we can further understand what the next steps in the process are.
And I would recommend that you follow up with what Oneida said about the looking in other states, because that would probably be a question that would be asked, especially by the board members, most likely. What are other people doing?
Additional comments or feedback? Okay, now we'll hear from the other work group on the PGP, Principles of Good Practice.
All right, so the instrument is going to go through its final vetting process among the members, and that would be reviewing it for release to go into the process, which Michelle has already mentioned, with that we described the methodology that was used for the, it's more or less a compression of the various different measurements for distance education quality. And then we work out the communication plan, but it became apparent that the timeline for the communication plan needs to correlate with processes with the coordinating board. So we need input from you regarding that process in order to then plan forth with our communication plan, which would involve connecting out to the HERT committees, distance education listserv, the portal listserv for distribution, having open forums for input, possibly at some conferences and presentations to get input on what we have put together. So where are we on coordinating board? They would want to, we present the final.
Correct. So my understanding that these policies did go in front of the board for final approval. So the board meets quarterly. Things that need to be let me go back a little bit. There's two meetings that basically that this would go through. First would be the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success, which is a subcommittee of the full board. They would look at it, and then they would ask any questions and vet it to see if it goes in front of the board for the full meeting. Usually, to go in front of the cause committee, I would say at least a month ahead of time, you want to have your materials ready, because I have to submit them as a agenda item for the Committee on Academic Workforce Success, and if it goes to that, to the board. But for that one, at least a month before the cause committee. That's the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. So would they meet in March, June, and September, and December of next year, of this coming up year. So this next year is going to be March. They're meeting this December, but that's just way too early. We're not ready yet anyway. But March would be the next one, then June, September, and December is when the cause meets. So you'd have to have your materials ready at least a month before that date. Usually it's towards the end of the month, except for December, that meets earlier in the month of December. Once it goes through that, once you have all your approvals through the committee and through leadership, and then it gets submitted to the cause, and then it goes through the board. And then after that, it could be submitted as, well, let me see, you're going to the administrative code, correct? Let me go back a little bit. For the administrative code, once you get all your information back, no, wait, that's not right. This is just a PGV. It doesn't have to go in front of the administrative code. Sorry. That's right. Just have to have your materials ready a month ahead of time of the cause. That's all.
All right, just to summarize then, have our vetted instrument with input open, so that we have already performed open comment period, and in the finalized materials to the cause committee.
Well, you would submit it to us first.
To the coordinating board, right. And then it would proceed to the cause committee.
Right.
And actually, they would rule if it would need to go any further than that, and that may just take care of it then.
Correct.
Okay.
So you would have to get all your, like I said, you have to go through all your vetting first and get approvals between this committee and our leadership first before it goes into the cause.
All right. And it's kind of a moving target, but as far as where we are on the instruments, I guess the only other thing that was regarding, we already addressed the website, and then, but it dawned on me, because we have a lot of different items that come up in committee. Have we ever established a process that, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel each time, so that we have it aligned as to, yes, if you have something from the board, then it would go this channel. And if for instance, this is not really an administrative code, right? But your issue is.
Like, you want to know, like, processes to go in front of, something to go in front of the board? What is the process? I'm sure there is somewhere. I've never had to.
Go read the instructions. Okay.
Yeah, I'll look into that for you. I'll find it. So you were looking for basically like a flow chart of what to do in order to get things through the coordinating board process.
Yeah, that technology thing kind
of.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look into that.
One of the things that you will be receiving from this committee is access to the current PGP update so that everyone on this group can review. And what we are asking is that you distribute it amongst your teams within your universities that have a knowledge base in either the SACS, CRAC, OLC scorecard, or QM, so that we can make sure that we're accurately representing the mapping between those as well. We'll send some instructions. We want to make sure that the LTAC has gone through this, that we have distributed enough for feedback here before we publicly go for comment. Comments or questions on the PGP?
Oh, and just to be aware, when you do go in front of the cause on the board, we'll probably have to have representation from the committee to be able to justify why you're recommending these changes.
So, Michelle, ideally, or somebody, ideally, what is your timeline to get the new PGP?
Our goal is to have it in place for the HERC groups. And so I believe that puts us into April.
Well, we start putting out, I'm going to try to put out HERC information by January so that they know they need to meet. And that's, I will get notifications of where the meetings will be held and when they'll be held. But usually we want to, the HERC meetings happen in the spring, but I'm trying to get it out as early as I possibly can because, in fact, in this last round of HERC meetings, we wanted to make a change to the template, correct, thank you, to the reporting template, but some of them had already done their meeting before we even had the orientation. So this time we're trying to get it out earlier so that everybody uses the same template.
Okay, I think I got that kind of out of sequence. What we'd really want to do is have the open commentary period with the HERCs. So that would be in January, and we would present.
Well, I'm going to notify them they have to have their meeting, and I usually have them end their meetings by April, correct? Or was it May? So it's, we have, like, they have an open time period to have their meetings. You said till May we had last time? But we started later. We didn't start till about March is when I put out the notification. But if we put out the notification earlier, we could have an earlier meeting.
Because the document is pretty close to, it's a good model right now. We want to make sure that we do get feedback from this group. We want to have that done prior to the chair orientation, which will happen in either late January or early February, as well as the institutional representative training that will occur a couple of weeks after that. So those will be two of the avenues that we have for distribution of the document for feedback and so forth. Then at every HERC meeting, once those dates have been established, we will also have someone presenting at least 5 to 10 minutes of their time to have discussion and dialogue on the instrument itself and what it's mapped to. We'll also explore avenues such as TXDLA, where we will have a group of distance learning educators all together to be able to go through this process as we normally have a THECB session where we have questions and dialogue with Dr. Lofters.
With this in mind, then we may be pushing into June for the cause.
Additional questions, comments? Okay, and we appreciate everyone's work on these two critically important pieces of what we do, and we understand that it takes a lot of time on everyone's behalf on top of their regular responsibilities to be able to go through this process. So we appreciate your dedication to these efforts, as we know that it will significantly impact the field as we move forward. Now we'll go ahead and go into discussion of any future agenda items, things that are going on that we may need to look into or have questions on that we can have for our next meeting, which will be in February.
I would like to tentatively put on the list maybe the discussion of distance ed or online graduate programs, master's degrees, has come up a couple times about how we are we ensuring that there are quality programs at the graduate level? And it stemmed from one of the reports that was done here at the coordinating board, and it's come up a couple of times. I'm still going to be talking with my leadership about this and how they want to present it to the LTAC, so I would like to tentatively put it on for February right now.
Can you redistribute that report? I don't know if everyone was on the committee when this originally came up, so we could have that report distributed to all the members so that we can review it and be ready to have a conversation in February. And if everyone is okay, I think the working group session time has come out very fruitful over the last couple of meetings, so if we can continue that practice and have that as part of the agenda as well.
Agree. Michelle? I'd like to just follow. It was a very good, informative report on what's happening with, is it 810? I can't remember. State bill? Is it SB 810 or HB? SB, I'm sorry. I get these mixed up sometimes. But get an update on what the board decides based on the recommendations of the committee, where we stand on the grants program, feasibility studies of a statewide repository. That's of great interest to me, and I'm sure of great interest eventually to our students across the state, with significant funding savings and potential quality improvements in instructional materials. It's of great interest. So if we can get an update on that, track that closely as a group.
And I'm sorry I didn't go upstairs and make those copies, but I will get the report that I gave you today from my colleague, Doug Jansen. I'll send it to all of you electronically. That way you'll have it.
And may I ask a question? Do you have information on what's happened with text lore? I mean, I was sort of involved at one time and know that it went away, but it's still, I don't know if there's still pieces there or not.
Doug talked to me about that, and he explained, he told me why it wasn't still running as it did in the past, and he has information, but I'll make sure I get him to update for that for you too, as well.
I think in addition to the working group, we'll have probably some high-level data from the survey we could share. And then the working group could kind of dive into it a little bit.
You think you'd have you would have results back to give it to us, or?
I think, I mean, if we're able to send it out within the next couple of weeks and then a follow-up early December, I think, January, use that to do some fairly high-level stuff. I think for a February meeting, we could at least have some high-level results, and then maybe have the discussion if we need to send out a third call for participation, depending on what we've got.
Okay.
One of the topics that came up at a recent conference I was attending with the deadline for EIR 508 compliance and the updates that are, I think January 2018 is set to be the deadline for implementation on that. If we could have, I know that we had, I think it was Mr. Raymond Rose come in a couple of meetings ago, or maybe that was a different committee group. I think it was right? It was us. And it was a couple of meetings ago, but I'm not sure if everyone at the table was here to somewhat listen to that presentation, but at least a follow-up on maybe some bullet items on EIR and what are about the deadline that's approaching for compliance come January 2018 for Section 508 updates.
What would you say that with Section
508?
508.
Other items? Okay, seems like we have a pretty full agenda for next time, so good that we don't have any more at the time. But if something else does come up in the meantime, or you're attending a conference that you think something needs to be brought to the table, please don't hesitate to email myself or Justin or Andrew just to make sure that we do get some space on the agenda. We want to stay current. I think this group is doing a really good job of that. Any other comments at this time? Hearing none, we will entertain a motion for adjournment at this time.
I'll move.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much.
Oh, next
next meeting's in February.
Yeah, I'll give you the
You'll
date.
send that?
I'll give you the date. Well, we said February a couple times.
I
so-
did. Somebody should get those, right?
My group seems to be a little confused about the distance ed portal, and